If you want to win big, and I'm talking about personally and professionally, you come to the right place. Our guest today, Kevin Johnson, he is the global function COO of Aon Corporation. My guy is definitely winning, and he come here to open up to let you know about his principles of winning. Welcome in. I'm your host, Desmond Clark, the host of Principles of Winning, where we interview highly successful entrepreneurs, executives, athletes, politicians, and entertainers to discern the principles and the disciplines that they apply to their personal and professional lives to create the mountains of success they've experienced so we can continue to develop ourselves personally and professionally for the successful playbooks that we want to implement in our own life. But before we get started, I want to give a shout out to NAIA. NAIA is the National African American Insurance Association. They hired me back in 2023 for their national conference, and that's where I met our guest today. So thank you, NAIA, for making this happen. And a short sponsor read. This episode of Principles of Winning is brought to you by Des Clark Speaks. Des Clark Speaks is your preferred keynote speaker and corporate team development specialist. We help executive team leaders like you create pinnacle team success by establishing the principles of winning. And now listen, we're going to bring Kevin on in a minute, but I know that he knows the impact of having a strong team. Planning and strategy is only heightened to another level when you have a dominant team leader and a dominant team that is tied together and grounded foundationally with cohesion, culture, and clarity. Go to www.desclarkspeaks to learn more information. Now let's introduce our guest, Kevin Johnson. He has been with Aon Corporation for 12 years and is the global function COO of the Aon Corporation. Is a leading global professional services firm providing advice and bespoke solutions in risk, wealth, and health, powered by data and analytics. In his role as function COO, he is responsible for ensuring the execution of Aon's functional operational vision across legal and compliance, finance, marketing, and the people organization. His focus includes a variety of areas that include the development and enablement of function roadmaps and operational delivery strategies, implementing technology, driving change programs to increase operational capacity, effectiveness for the firm. Additionally, Kevin is tasked with supporting smart working initiatives and the physical welfare for the combined function and shared services partnering with operational leadership across the globe. And without any further ado, let's bring Kevin in. How you doing, Kevin?
Hey, Desmond, I'm doing good, man. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir, man. Hey, that's a mouthful. You got a lot of responsibility with Aon.
Yeah, just a little bit, but that's what keeps us busy. That's what keeps us going and keep us striving every day.
Keep that motivation, keep that brain working full time, man. And that's who we are as people. But I want to get started somewhere where you say that you are like excited. And when I heard you say this, it kind of made me like, that's different. You're excited because now in your role and where you at in your life, you want to kind of reach the outward bounds of who you are as a person. You want to expand, you want to grow, you want to explore more. And when I heard that coming from a person that's in your position, it made me want to dig into that a little bit more. So tell me why you so excited about getting to that place of exploring yourself and expanding more.
Yeah, Desmond, at the end of the day, we're all, continuing learners. I mean, if we're not, then you're not growing at all. You're actually, you're stagnating at best and maybe going in reverse. And so, I come with a bunch of different things. And one of them is, the opportunity resides at the fringes of your job description. And so I think that, in order to be at the top of your game, you always have to be looking for those opportunities to add more, to bring more to the table every single day. And the reason why I'm excited is I can see nothing but opportunity ahead of us. You look at, the space that we're in, and it's a volatile marketplace out there. And that means that there's a lot of opportunities to help our clients and our colleagues, to get to that next level and to solve business problems for them. And being an operations guy, of which I've been for, so many years, there's nothing but opportunity around there. So it's like a field day, for me, to come in and just be able to feast your eyes on all of these different areas where, you can bring some of the experiences that I've had to bear, to help people.
And for you personally, like when I hear someone that has your title, that has accomplished like things that you've accomplished, I'm thinking, okay, where do you go next? How do you continue to grow? And I know that you say, hey, the opportunity is there, but for me, and I think a lot of other people who will be listening to this is, okay, what's next in the growth aspect for a Kevin Johnson?
Yeah, thank you. Not an easy question to answer, but this is how I would answer it. You ever have a scenario where you've met someone and it's obvious that their goal is just to climb or just to, do certain things, and there's an impression that it leaves you? I always take a little bit different of approach. I always find myself in trying to find ways to have additional impact and additional ways to bring people together. Success is a team sport. And when you go at it that way, the opportunities find you. I don't spend a lot of time, looking for it. Now, don't get me wrong. We have to spend time developing ourselves. We have to spend time, trying to learn more and be inquisitive in all those things. But when you put your focus in the right place and focus on the people, focus on the business, the opportunity always seems to find you, because, you don't treat the world as if you were an island unto yourself. You're looking for ways to really make the world a better place. And so for me, opportunity will always find you. So I don't really get focused on what's next, other than what's my next impact I'm going to make.
Man, we share, and we've had a chance to talk since we met each other in October a number of times. And what I've grown to like about you is that we share some of these same qualities. And it sounds like from everything that I just heard right there, you're more of a person that, hey, you're trying to make other people successful. And as you're trying to make those other people successful, you find success in that for yourself. Or as you just said, success comes and finds you. Am I hearing that right?
You spot on.
Yeah. And tell me, when you look at trying to make other people successful, in what ways are you doing that? Like what's the, I guess, the psychology, or your philosophy is the word that I'm looking for, behind how you make people better?
Yeah, no huge magic, man. It's just, having a servant's mentality. And, I've always had kind of this service mindset, even from my younger kid days all the way through high school and college. And so the premise behind that is really just, how can I serve the people that are in front of me, whether it's a client, whether it's a colleague, or whether it's people that report to me. In fact, I have a number of leaders that report to me, and I tell them frequently, my job is to remove the obstacle out of your path so you can be successful. Mm-hmm. And when I do that, people, they see the sincerity in that, and it's backed up by action. It's not just empty words, but when you do that, people automatically put themselves out there for you. And that not just goes for people that report to you, but for the people that I support in client relationships or other colleagues in other divisions of our business. When you operate that way, people want to work with you. And so they become either an outspoken or an unspoken advocate for you. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, it's just simple. Keep it simple. Be here to serve, and you will be served.
But now I know somebody's out there saying, okay, this he's the COO of Aon Corporation. It can't be that simple. It really can't be that simple.
Yeah, Desmond, I do think it is that simple. And, Yeah, and maybe, there's a little bit of something that people might say, you're maybe in the right place at the right time, or you got connections and things like that. Desmond, I grew up on the west side of Chicago, okay? Madison and Pulaski, there is no more hood than that, okay? But this whole mentality that I've had, even from the lowest, opportunities or the smaller opportunities that I've had over my entire career, I didn't just land here today. This was in the makings over 30 some years of with this mentality and service. I couldn't put a name to it before, or I couldn't put an adage to it before. But when I look back over time, I started to realize, well, what was the common denominator? And it was always this mindset of service, and it was always making it about how I help you. And when you do that, I'm telling you, people really endear themselves to you, and it disarms them because they don't see you as a threat, but they see you as, a person that's there to really work with them. And so I value things like team, collaboration. I always tell people, look, as long as we understand what the outcome is supposed to be, I'll concede in my position to have it being done my way, right?
Okay.
But if we do it your way and it don't work, you better believe I'm going to want to do it my way.
Right. So we hear that a lot. Like you hear people, I'm the same way, by the way. Like for my company, Bear Down Logistics, each of my broker agents, I tell them that they're my business partners. And my job is to make them successful. And one of those things is how can I provide you the resources so you can go out and do your job better? We working on our mission statement, our vision statement. We're 2 years old, so we're taking a step back. But when you hear about, hey, I'm service, I'm trying to help other people get better, some people may look at that in this. I think it's a misconception that a lot of people have that you have to be that hardcore, tough guy. You're the one who barking the orders to get up the corporate ladder. And if you're quote unquote soft and you're only serving other people, then you get stepped on, you get walked on. So how have you been able to maintain that mentality of I'm here to serve, but also be firm enough that people don't see that as something other than what it is, like being soft or not being stern or firm enough to climb that corporate ladder?
Yeah, no, it's such a great question and great point. And many people, have asked me that. I don't change for anybody. That's just part of my brand. But one thing that sits inside of that, right? You're a really nice guy. You cooperate. You're very collaborative. But people know that I'm very serious. When I talk about business, when I talk about trying to accomplish something, I get very serious. But I'm very cooperative. I'm always respectful. Always. I don't ever feel like I have to, increase my position to try and make someone else feel a certain way or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do it through cooperation. Now, the interesting part of that is, you ever deal with a person that does nothing but bark, and a person that come at you? Do you really have a lot of respect for that person? And you're always suspect of them, right?
Yeah,
I take a totally different tack.
I call that having, instead of having cooperation, you have compliance. You got to comply with that person. You're not really cooperating with that person.
Yeah, so I have another term for that, right? That I use. Are we going to do it through inspiration or perspiration?
Okay.
Right? Sometimes you need a little bit of both. But, my job at the end of the day is, people have enough stressors in life. If you look at the news around you, if you look at the world around you, people have enough stuff that they're dealing with, on a daily basis. They don't have to come to work or, have an engagement with me where I'm coming in to bring all that stress. Now, I will tell you this, though. When things get to a certain extent where I have to really get serious, people know my consistent demeanor. When I get serious, people really pay attention to that. And they know that it's not lost on them at that point, because they know that I'm coming from a good place, because they know that I'm here to serve. But when I press on something, they take it really serious. And so I like the effect that has. I like being known as the nice guy. I like being known as the guy that's serious about business. And then when I have to turn up the heat, not just for the sake of turning it up, but because it's needed at that point, people take a step back and they'll go, whoa, okay, Kevin's not an unreasonable guy. There must be something else going on here. Let's really, take a step back and make sure we're
Right.
tuned into it.
Okay, so now we started very, very high level. Hey, COO, Aeon, this and that. But you mentioned you're from the west side of Chicago. Like
Yes, sir.
you grew up in the hood. And so I just had my brother-in-law yesterday say, hey man, I see all this stuff that you're doing out here is real, real good. But like, what about some of the stories of the people that come from where we come from and then make it? I was like, you're gonna be surprised. I got an interview tomorrow with a guy that's from the west side of Chicago, from the hood, that has made it big, right? In the eyes of people where you come from, right? How what were the challenges that you grew up with? And then from those challenges, what type of principles, what type of disciplines did that instill in you so you can get out of that situation to get to where you're at now?
Yeah, Desmond, the biggest challenge all the time is the one that's up here. The
Mm-hmm.
one that tells me that I'm not good enough, the one that tells me that I can't do what I see other people do. That was always the challenge. I had the opportunity or the good fortune or the blessing, however you want to look at it, to have grown up where my grandmother took care of me for all the informative years of my life, maybe
Mm-hmm.
up through my grade school, right before high school. And she always told me, she said, you're going to be somebody. And that stuck with me. And I'm going to tell you, I have family members, that serve time. I've had, things that happen, in the community around us. There was death. There was, all kinds of things that were going on that I grew up in. But through that whole time, I always, always, always had this thought that I can be somebody, like my grandmother told me. And I started to envision what that looked like. I didn't know what I was going to end up to be, but I said, I want to be a businessman. That's what I always
Really?
said. And
Wow.
I said, I want to be in business. I was interested in real estate. Now, mind you, a little kid on the West Side looking at like real estate shows. I just knew that I liked the way that it looked. I liked the people and how they, presented themselves, all these things. And I said, I want to be there. Now, I had no clue how I was going to get there, but I always had that as kind of this foundation. And over the course, of my life up to that point, it was all about decisions. What decision was I going to make? Did I have to be what I was surrounded by in my community? And now, mind you, there was people there that loved their families, that had a whole bunch of talent and a lot
A
of good things
whole
about
lot
them.
of good in the hood. It's a
Man,
whole lot of
it's so
good in the
much
hood.
good in the hood. I would even tell you that they know better about survival than most anybody out there. They
Right.
can get into any environment and figure out how to make it work. That's the advantage that I brought with me into these other different settings, And so, for me, at the end of the day, man, the biggest challenge we have to overcome is us, ourselves, and what we have up here and what we are telling ourselves we can or we can't do. It doesn't make me better. I am not better than anyone that came up from my community. And I see a lot of, young brothers and sisters that come into corporate America, and I'm sitting with them having conversations all the time saying, I want whatever you got in your head, do not tell yourself that you cannot do it. Always tell yourself, that you can, and find somebody that's going to continue to pour into you and help reinforce, that. And that's why I said, I know it's possible for other people because there ain't nothing special about me.
And I think that's what we have to break down, right? We have to break down that wall because they see Kevin at this specific moment. They don't see what Kevin had to overcome. They don't see all of the ordinary stuff that you just did a little bit with extra care to make yourself extraordinary. You we all did ordinary stuff, but you probably just worked just a little bit harder. You did just a little bit more. You took a little bit more care. You had a little bit more thought into it. And then voila, we get what we have now. Kevin, when I think about winning, I always think about the origin definition of winning, of the word win. And that definition is right over here on my wall. And it says to gain and succeed by struggle.
Mm.
Do you, when I look back on my life, especially in the early parts when, hey, didn't have much, it was a struggle, but always, and it sounds like you always lean into it also. Okay, yeah, this is the struggle, but I'm gonna keep my head on straight, and I'm going to go into this struggle and defeat the struggle. Is that kind of your mindset as a young kid? Because just like you said, I told my mom at 14 I was going to be successful. Didn't know what success really meant. Couldn't really see success. For me, it was go to school, graduate, go to college, get a good job. For you, did you have that mindset of whatever the struggle is, I know that I can overcome it?
Yeah, no, I absolutely did, and another adage, it's a struggle, but right, what you do next, the but makes all the difference in the world, right? You in a tough situation, but and I've had a lot of those situations. I mean, you know, Desmond, sitting where I'm at today is just one part of the story, right? That people see and can lean on. But my first year coming out of high school, determined I was going to go to college. And my first year, I discovered, I was going to be a father,
Oh man.
18 years old. Now, but I made the decision that I'm going to make this work. So I not only leaned into this whole new reality that I had, I decided I was going to get married. Me and my 18-year-old bride, we got married. Now, it was a struggle, as you can imagine, because I
Mhm.
didn't have really any foundation. I had nothing going for me, right? And this happens in our neighborhoods all the time, man. Where we come from, that is like a common thing that happened. But I made a different decision. I said, we're going to get married. I'm going to tell you today, 36, almost 36 years later, we still married. Okay. There was a lot of buts that I had to go through during that time because it wasn't easy. And there was many struggles. There was many times of not having enough money to pay rent,
Uh-huh.
many times for no food with the kids coming like right after the marriage. So what the situation was. It was it was extremely hard, man. But I determined that I was going to, do better or do differently than what I saw. I determined that I did not have to repeat the things that I saw in my very own family. And that was the life, that I live. And so jumping into work at that point, it didn't matter what I did. I just knew that I had to take care of my family and provide for them. And it was a struggle, but
And you went on to college and went on to graduate.
so not everybody, and this is what I tell people all the time, Desmond, is that not everybody have to go to the straight line to get to the end. It took me probably about another 6, 7, 8 years from the time that we got married and we had our
Mhm.
first child, and then we had another child like right after that. So I didn't even go back to college until like another, gosh, 6, 7 years later, after I had begun working, and I was working 2 and 3 jobs, doing floors on the weekends and the nights while working at Motorola, AT&T, because that's what it took, doing those smaller jobs until I grew over time into some of these bigger opportunities. And man, it was just not, it was a constant, struggle. But again, I just kept on pushing. I just kept pushing, man. And every opportunity, this whole servant's mentality, remind you, that was always there in the background. So everything I did, everything I touched, at that point was all still about taking care of somebody else. It was really the foundation that led me to get married, that led me to be a responsible father, that led me to go out and get 2 and 3 jobs, to take care of them and just continue to serve. And opportunities just started to keep coming my way because I made it all about everybody else and not just about me. I'm losing your audio here. Not sure if you could still hear me. Not yet. Can you hear me?
Oh, for some reason
There
I
you
got, yeah. So we're back in here. So when you hear the saying "nice guys finish last," what what kind of response comes up with you when you hear that saying?
Yeah, when I hear that saying, man, I push back on that, heavily because, nice guys struggle through the hard times, but they get to the other side. And so, I was always a nice guy. And I just never felt that I was on the losing end. I just felt like there was something that I could always do. Now, I should preface everything I,
Mm-hmm.
said here today by saying God is my foundation. I mean, I have a center that's so centered on Christ and God that is the force that's behind everything that you see here today. It don't mean
Mm-hmm.
that I'm perfect, so I don't want your listeners to get this perspective. Oh man, this guy's a goody two shoes, man. So let's just let's wrap it up right now because it's not, man. I'm telling you, I struggle just like everybody else, man. And I go to church, all these things, and people say, "Man, you're the most religious person I know." Just because I go to church, I'm like, no, I'm the person that realized that I need to have God more in my life than the other person to help keep me grounded and help keep me looking forward. So that's really the foundation of everything.
No, and for me also, if I couldn't, because one of the things that I realized, like we're alpha males, right? People look to us for leadership, and so who do we look to for leadership? Who do we go to, right? You can't. There's few people that we can go to get what we need, like we give to everybody else. So for me, if I couldn't go there, I don't know where I'll be able to go
That's
most of the
exactly right.
time, because once you get to a certain level, there's a few places that you could turn to. So I truly do understand that, and I don't know. Do you feel that same way? Like as you when you were kind of lower on the corporate ladder, you had people you could turn to, but once you keep climbing up, now the air is a little bit thinner up there.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit thinner. But if I go to, who created all the air, who created the earth, who created the water, who created the animals and everything, it's limitless. So there's never going to be a time that I'm not going to have somebody, to look up to. And there's things that I see in people that I admire and
Hmm.
characteristics that I like, but there is no one that has the entire package, that God has offered, to me in this journey we call life. That I will take my focus off of, man. And I'm telling you, it's a struggle. The moment that you start to read your own press clippings, the moment that you start to look for all the flashing lights and are they on me or not, is when you got to worry a little bit, right? So it's like constantly keep it grounded.
So Kevin, I'm gonna get real deep with you here for a minute. This is something that I often ask myself, and that I often struggle with the reason why I can't just, you know, you just want to be you want to be the good of two shoes. I do. I want to. Hey, everything that's written, everything that I'm told by, why can't I just stay there? And I ask myself this a lot: do I believe God will always tell me the truth? Or let me rephrase that. I believe that God will never lie to me. So if I believe that He'll never lie to me, why don't I always do exactly what He says? Because the promises are there. Have you ever had that type of conversation with yourself?
All the time, man. It's what keeps me coming back. One of the things that I've learned to do over time, Desmond, is to, ask God to protect me from myself. Why is
Mm-hmm.
that? That sounds a bit odd. Is because we can convince ourselves of anything under the right or the wrong conditions,
Mm-hmm.
right? If the right or wrong circumstances, get in our head a certain way, we can convince ourselves of anything, which makes us, me and you, the most dangerous people we know. Not somebody
Mm-hmm.
else on the corner, not someone else hiding in the dark. It makes me the most dangerous person I know because I can convince myself of anything if under the right or wrong circumstances. So
Oh,
yes, I go
absolutely.
in and out of that all the time.
We could justify anything that we want to.
Anything.
We could justify it. Um, all right, I'm a shift on you here. We got into your personal life a little bit. I want to dig into your professional life. Where did you start? Where was that first, hey, entry level position? And once you got that entry level position, what was that first moment that you said, okay, I'm challenged, but I overcome that challenge, and now I believe that I can do this, not just by having a blind belief, but having a experiential belief.
Yeah, yeah. So we go back years ago, and it didn't start too long after found out that my girlfriend was pregnant, and I was going to be married, and reality set in is like you don't have a lot of time. Probably another 7 months or whatever it was that you needed to turn it up. I had no life experiences, but because I had the kind of personality, I had friends, and so people were like, "Hey, heard about this opening," and so I went to work for this little small computer cable company, wire and cable company. And, I got a job there in a production shop, just
Mm-hmm.
doing line production. And that whole idea that I told you, I didn't know that this is what it was and what I develop over time. The opportunity resides at the fringes of your job description. I just have the kind of mind that you go into a place and you're working and you can see things that makes it better. Right. And so I wasn't just asphyxiated on what was in front of me. I did that, but I started to see these other opportunities to make things in that environment better from a production standpoint. And then so I just started to take liberties proactively saying, hey, if we did this, we can make this better. And the production leader said, wow, okay, great. And he implemented some of my ideas. In that same company, I saw these salespeople and I saw how sharp they were dressed. I saw how they, just kind of, maneuvered, in the building and all the respect they got. I said, I want to try that. And so one of the owners, I put it out there. I said, look, not just put me there. I said, if the opportunity presents itself, I would love to be able to do this. And so they actually created a little bit of an inside sales position that I can try doing telemarketing and things like that. Right. And so that's really where it all started. And getting in there, doing a good job, working that job and figuring out how to come up with new ideas to bring impact. And I started to come up with marketing ideas on how to position their products. And then it grew from there. I wind up leaving there. It was an incredible story because by that time I was going to be having my first child. Now, you know how it is when you have a pre-existing condition. Nobody going to pay for a pre-existing condition, right? Because I was just going to be a father. Well, these folks, they took to me so well that they not only gave me the insurance coverage, but they covered me 100% on the birth of my first child.
Wow.
And so I only share that to say is that this was the impact that I was having with this servant's mentality. I couldn't put a name to it, but that's what I know it was, now that I look back. And from there, I eventually moved on and had my first opportunity to go to this big Motorola, distributor where I came into sales, and then I moved into sales management, and then I did operational things, and that moved me over to AT&T, that I was there for 17 years, and then this opportunity that popped up for Aon. So it was this progression of doing many jobs. And what I've told people, is that on paper, when you look at my resume, you'll say, wow, this guy doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up. But no, it was because of that idea that I always worked at the fringes. People always came up to me and said, we have a job for you, or we have this opportunity that we want you to consider. And that's how I made a career of doing that to where I'm at today. I don't think there might have been one time over my entire 30 some years that I actually sought a job versus someone giving me a job or presenting me an opportunity.
That is so interesting. I think from what I'm hearing, it sounds to me like you created really good relationships wherever you were at. And
The
those
cornerstone.
relationships created value because you was the person that was always looking to add value to the relationships, right? Whatever
That's
you were getting paid, okay, I'm going to do my job and I'm going to also try to create more value. And I always tell people I've never met anyone that raised their hand and say, hey, I don't want to be a person of value. Nobody says that, right? Everybody wants to be a person of value. And the quickest and most effective way to do that is always seeking to add value to other people.
It's it.
And
I mean, it's the way.
that's one of the five core things that, because we always talk about, hey, businesses or sales and all of this stuff. It's a relationship driven business. It's a relationship driven sale. All relationship. But not often do you hear, okay, how do I actually build that? Like, how do you cultivate that? And one of the five key areas that I talk about is be a person that's always looking to add value. And it sounds like that's what you were good at.
Yeah, it has to be the cornerstone of everything that you do, because the moment that you add value, then your brand kind of starts to precede you. People start to advocate for you in ways that you don't even know, and that's the power of brand, right? You ever see powerful brands in the marketplace? They seem to just live on forever and ever. Is because of that trueness, that pureness of the brand, and that consistency always draws people to you. It makes it very, very attractive.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. The brand. So in my book, Principles of Winning, I talk about, and you heard me speak about this before.
Yeah.
The number one principle is your name and your word, and I talk about that is your brand. So you now that you're in this leadership position, how do you communicate that to the people that have to report to you about their name and their word actually being their brand? Just like you said, you created a brand for yourself. So
Yeah.
every time people heard Kevin Johnson, it came with a certain brand identity to it. And I don't think too many people or enough people actually connect the two. Your name is a brand.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely a brand. And the thing that's a little bit tricky about it, some people may confuse it and think it's self-publication, and it's
Mm,
not. Brand is something that stands on its own, meaning that because of the way that you do things, the way that you support things, the way that you create value and impact, it creates this aura around you where people see, the true value of it. You don't have to speak it into
all right.
existence. Your actions actually manifest it,
Right.
right, over time. And so I think that your ability to continue to do that, and it's not just one instance. You can't say one and done. It is a way of living. It is a life. In fact, I was just talking to a young brother today, and new early career. He was asking me about my career and things like that. And this is what I told him. I said, everybody has a sphere of influence, and your sphere of influence is anybody that can see you, hear you, touch you, smell you, sense you, whatever it is, right? And that is the making of your brand. If you are not careful with the way that you manage your sphere of influence, now these can be people directly connecting with you or indirectly. The indirectly is the piece that people miss.
Mm-hmm.
They'll run away with their mouth or with a situation, and they have onlookers that don't even know them, that now has this picture about who they really are. And that is just as important to your brand as the one that you purposely try to put out there.
Absolutely. And I people need to understand, hey, you can have your tagline for your name. You can say everything that you want to say about yourself, but it's what people think about you that's really going to determine your brand, because you can put it out there, but you can't make people think what you want them to think. You can only influence that. So every interaction that you have with people should be very intentional, because that's how you're going to influence people. And
Absolutely.
that's so I think about Nike, just do it, right?
Yep.
They can say just do it, and they can say they're this, they're that, but if their shoes were garbage, their brand would be garbage, because we would think these shoes stink.
That's
They can
right.
say whatever they want to. So it's in I guess the user, so to speak, to determine the value of the brand. So I always tell people every interaction has to be intentional with people. And the way that you do anything is the way that you should do everything. So your brand is always on point.
Yeah, and a great way to really help to build on that is your words. Know that your words mean something. Don't put words out there in the ether just to appease people. When you say something, it's got to mean something, and it's backed up by your actions and about how you carry yourself and the consistency of that. If you say it today, is he going to say it tomorrow? Is he a fair weather,
Right.
guy, or is he a true, true blood, right?
Is he
And that's
true?
what
Is he
people are
true
going to
to
look
his
at.
word? Is
Yeah,
he true
man.
to his
And your
word?
kids are the biggest critic of that, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
kids will watch you and see how you live around the house, and they see you interact with people at church and people, on your podcast and stuff, and they're going to call you to task, on it, right? And so
So,
it's a tough thing.
Kevin, this was just last Wednesday. Me and my son, we get up early in the morning, go work out, wake him up at 6:30. He get a workout in 3 to 4 times a week in the morning before he goes to school. But it was one morning, I picked him up from school, and he was like, "Dad, I can't wait to work out in the morning." So I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna get a good workout, blah blah blah, this and that." And then the next morning, I woke up and I was like, "Man, I forgot I got a meeting an hour away, and I got to leave out at 6:30." So I told my wife, I was like, "Hey, when Nebraska wakes up, have him to call me." And so she had him call me, and I was like, "Hey, man, hey, Dad had to go to a meeting. I forgot to let you know that. So I don't want you to think that I forgot about us working out or I just ran out on you. Dad just really forgot about his meeting." And the reason that I did that is because I want my son to always feel like when dad says something, it's going to get done. He
That's
means
right.
it. He's not going to flake out. So I didn't even want it to seep in that, oh, dad just flaked out on our, no. Hey, I forgot. My bad. All honesty, all transparency. Like you said, because my name to him and my word to him means everything. Everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's something that, your kids and others will perpetuate, right? Even in a corporate environment, when your team see you operate that way and they know that there's integrity, that's the key, right? There's integrity in what you say. I manage, my colleagues that work for me the same way I would manage other people, right? And so they see that consistency. And if I know we haven't done our best work, I own it, man. I claim it, right? And I won't let my team take a beating on their own, man, because they're my team. I'm like, hey, we own it. And I'm not going to say Billy Bob on my team did it or Lucy did it. I'm
Right.
going to say I own it, right?
So
I never hang my team out there.
this is the perfect segue into like the last kind of block of leadership and Kevin that I want to talk about is that team leader, Kevin. And you just really talked about building that trust. And my question, I actually wrote this question down, Kevin, because I wanted to make sure that I asked it just like I was thinking. How do you foster a sense of trust within your teams? And what steps are taken to address any breakdowns of trust?
Yeah, it's about truth, brother. Truth, right? First of all, it is about that support. And you can articulate things and people will never take you serious. But I always start by telling my team, no matter if it's a new team, old team, whatever, I always say my job is to remove the obstacles from your path so that you can be successful. Now, I joke a little bit and say, by the way, sometimes you are the obstacle that I have to help remove, but they get that, right?
All right.
But then they see that in action, and you have to really support that type of mentality and really show them that you really mean that. And part of that is sharing truth with them when it's hard, right? With
Mm-hmm.
respect, right? Meant to raise them up, meant to lift them up and show them that, what I'm about to share with you, if it's a hard conversation, is meant to lift you up and to make you better, but not make you feel bad. And to let you know that I'm still in this with you and I still support you. And when you do that, man, I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you, people really get it. Truth is sometimes hard to share with people, but sometimes it's what they need to hear. And what I found over time, Desmond, is that you're going to share it at some point. You choose whether you're going to share it now or you're going to share it later. And I guarantee you, if you wait to share it later, you're going to put them in a worse position than if you
Mm.
would have just shared a little bit of truth up front.
When you share truth, it can bring on conflict, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so when you're cultivating your team, how do you communicate with them about how to deal with conflict? How is that conflict resolution handled with you and your team?
Yeah, you handle conflict by taking responsibility for what you own, for the
Hmm.
part that you play in it. And so they've seen me, as recently as this morning, accept that that's on us, And so when they see that playing out, because most people have the inclination to come up with reasons and excuses on why something did or didn't happen and what have you. And I don't make no excuses, because what I'm doing is I'm training everybody else is that when I'm interacting with you, I don't want excuses either.
Right.
I don't want it from my team, and I don't want it from other folks, because I'm going to come to them back with the truth, and I'm going to really own, what it is that, I'm responsible for, and I'm going to call it for what it is with respect. And then when I see that there's these things, people are always inclined, because they know how I operate, to act the same way, right? Sometimes they don't. And then sometimes I have to manage that, but in a very respectful manner. I always try and figure out how to position something. And I learned this by getting my butt whipped from my parents, because there was, and I'll tell you why, because today you can't get away with this stuff, man. But back when I was growing up, man, you couldn't backtalk. You
No.
cannot backtalk. And if you were to talk, not backtalk, you had to come up with a pretty good way on how to position what you was going to say.
Hmm.
I did not know I was developing a skill, because I had a lot to say back then, but I could not backtalk. But I found ways to really be able to present what it is that I needed to convey in a way that was not disrespectful or anything like that. And so I took that with me through my childhood all the way up through this point, because I have very strict parents, and they just did not take any form of backtalk, man. I'm gonna give you a quick example. One time my mom said something to me, and I said dog, and she smacked me. I'm like, well, what'd you smack me for? She goes, I knew what you was thinking.
You ain't
So
nothing to say
yeah,
it.
she knew what I was thinking.
If she thought that you was thinking it and wanted to say it.
That's right. Right. She knew it was already in my head. Right.
Right.
But I said it a different way, and she just didn't allow that kind of stuff, man. So I say all that to say, man, is that we have more control over what we say and how we say it than what we give ourselves credit for. And you
Absolutely.
have to be responsible for them words, man, because it's hard to take words back.
And we're not naturally inclined to it's my fault. That
No.
takes work, right? That takes some development. That takes somebody, showing you how that looks. Um, to because we always could come up, like we talked about earlier. We could rationalize anything, and that seems to be the natural tendency for just about any human, is to rationalize it. And that's what you're saying you don't accept, your parents didn't accept, and that you model for all the rest of your team members. And
That's right.
I feel like when those type of things are in place, when you build that trust, and then you're modeling how to handle conflict, the next thing that comes is now you get that full commitment from your team. When you think about fostering commitment, cultivating commitment from your teams, what type of things do you present to your team? Not that everybody agree, but that everybody is going to commit to whatever decisions you have to ultimately make for your team.
Yeah, I mean, not all decisions, are the ones that everyone likes, right? I mean, we are in corporate America, and sometimes things come from on high that we have to execute. And part of it is based on the fact that you don't always have the whole picture, right?
Mhm.
It's just like, being in the military, and you got folks that have to go to the front line. You may not like that you have to march it, but there's a reason and there's a strategy behind things sometimes. But the key is that you do not sell this premise when you're in the heat of the moment. It's developed from day one. It's developed from day one when you start to have these interactions with your team and everyone. You're starting to build the trust, the integrity, the brand. So when the moment comes, when you have to make the call that's
Moment of
unpopular
truth.
or whatever, the moment of truth, it's that whole saying, that's my ride or die, man. Why? It's because they've been through the trenches with you. They've seen you operate over time. And so now this moment is the moment of truth. They know that you're not going to send them down some dark, crazy place, without any choices, without any options. And so that trust comes to life at that moment. And that's when it makes it all worth it. And it isn't always fun, but that trust is still there. And they always acknowledge it by saying, yeah, I get it. I don't like it, but I trust you.
Right, man. I feel like trust is the biggest component to teams.
Absolutely.
I don't care if it's sports teams. I mean, we all watch the Super Bowl, right? And
Absolutely.
man, those quarterbacks, they release the ball sometime before the receiver even get out of the break, right?
That's
they
right.
Gotta trust that they're gonna run it at the right depth, and they gotta trust that they're gonna break it at the right depth. And then, man, you see all of these people, they coming up, they want to blitz, and you gotta trust that your offensive line are gonna pick up the right people, right?
That's right.
And if you can't trust that, same way in corporate America, if you can't trust that somebody's going to get their job done, it's hard to have that person on your team. So trust is even greater than love in my book, because you can love somebody, you can, man, like, you're my guy, but if you can't trust them, there's only so far that love can go.
Man, that's spot on.
Kevin, I got one more question for you, and this is like an off the wall question.
Sure.
Just when you think about how you develop yourself, are there any like good reads that you say these books help me to develop or think about or offer a perspective that helped me to get to where I'm at? And then who are some of those people that you look to now that you would say, hey, if you can go and connect with these people on LinkedIn, or if you ever have a chance to talk to these people, here's one or two people that you should do that with.
Yeah, this answer might maybe surprise you, a little bit. I wouldn't consider myself an avid reader. I probably have gotten more into the Bible because there's enough stories and situations and things in there to glean, from that. And I don't want, your readers or listeners to, walk away. Again, I'm not trying to be a big teacher. I'm just telling you.
Give it to them just like
yeah. This is
raw.
just my walk, but I've learned to be open to anyone and many different walks of life out there. I don't have to look to someone that's, famous. I don't have to look to someone who's published a novel. I can look to someone who is in my community. I can look to the lady consistently comes in and smile every day that empties our waste baskets here and says there's something about her that I really love, that I'd love to mimic. And man, I think that's the beauty, of life, man. Sometimes we're trying to chase things, man, that ain't real. Sometimes things that are out there and publicly available and easily accessible, they're not real. That the real things are around you. And so when you see people that have integrity, people that are in your neighborhoods, in the hood with you, that still gets up every day, you see them leaving every morning, going to work. You see them, walking their kids to school, whatever it is. There's something that we can glean, man, that's profitable for us in our everyday walk of life, and then there's time that you will meet people out there that are in the public spotlight, man, that emulate things, man, that you say, wow, I wish I had that skill, or I wish I can be that dynamic. But there are far more cases of individuals that are surrounding you every single day that you can profit from greater than you can from the person that is most known, on a global stage.
That you can't touch. It's the people that you can touch rather than the people that you can't touch.
That's right.
If you sum all of this up, principles of winning, what are Kevin's 1, 2, 3, 4, however many you have, key principles for winning?
Key principles: understand that it's not all about you. Okay. Key, right? A servant's mentality, not to deposition who you are or to be in this position of disrespect, but to help disarm people and help them to understand that you're looking to make, impact. Understanding that success is a team sport. I don't care who you are. You can be the most famous person out there. If you tell me that you did it all by yourself, I'm going to call you a liar, because there's other people that are around you that most definitely have impacted you to help you get to where you are. And last thing, I always say this, even if you're on the right track, if you sit there long enough, you will eventually be run over. Always keep moving, always keep growing, always keep looking for that opportunity to be more than what you are today.
And that brings it back full circle. That's how we started off. That's what you're excited about, is going out there, continuing to grow. Hey, Kevin, man, I thank you for jumping on. This was wonderful. Principles of winning. You have some key principles that I think can help people, and they're so foundational and simple, where I feel like people can really buy in and say, you know what, Kevin could do that. I can do that too.
Absolutely.
So we'll appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. And thank you for this platform. You're doing great work. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.